Welcome to From the Desk with Jada Montemarano, the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology, talent, and transformation in the world of HR. I'm Jada, and every week I'll be sitting down with innovators, leaders, and experts who are shaping the future of human resources. We'll discuss the trends, hot topics, and dive into tools and strategies that are helping organizations attract, retain, and support their people. So if you're into innovation, making smart hires, or finding your own job yourself, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, hit play, and let's get into it. This is From the Desk with Jada Montemarano, where we bring you the hottest HR news from the desk right to you. And today's guest is Dr. Anna Tavis, a clinical associate professor and academic director of the Human Capital Management Department at NYU School of Professional Studies. She's also a senior fellow with the Conference Board and the academic in residence with Executive Networks. She's a senior lecturer at Latin American Business School and the executive director for the Innovator Radar Network at Executive Networks. Dr. Tavis is the senior editor of People and Strategy Journal, a publication of HRPS. That is such an extensive resume. We are so honored to have you here today, Dr. Tavis.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, Jada.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're kicking off the new year, as we mentioned offline, and we're going to start talking about the job market as it was, maybe what it can be. But let's just start off with teaching us a little bit about human capital management as a professor. Let's learn from you a little bit for those who may not know.
So I'm actually chairing the Department of Human Capital Management, and we have 3 programs that I think, if I tell you what they are, really capture what human capital management is all about or where it's going. First, human capital generalists. That's one track that our master's students are taking. The second one is human capital analytics and technology. We have HR students who are coming in and they actually want to pivot. They want to know more about how to use data intelligently, and now in the age of AI, really grasp the foundations of technology because they see that the future of the profession is inextricably connected to the uses of data and technology. So we see more and more students kind of transitioning from being generalist traditional HR into the data-driven, technology-focused professionals. And then the third program we have, which is like really, really interesting, is executive coaching organization consulting. Because what we've seen, and we're the first program at New York University that actually decided to elevate coaching and consulting to the level of a Master of Science degree, because there's going to be more and more need for what's now called, as Sherm calls, power skills. And these are exactly the skills, more human skills at the highest level, where we need to really hone in and get our students be very good coaches, very good consultants, so that they can operate at the most strategic level. And what we're seeing now, Jada, is the convergence of all 3. So now we know that coaching and consulting can no longer happen without technology, AI, and data, as well as generalist skill set kind of across the broader spectrum of jobs and professions are also really, really critical for the future of HR as a function in organizations of all kinds.
And that was actually going to be my next question. With your being in this field for so long and in the academic space, what are those main changes maybe you've seen? Is it the technology and human coming together, or is there maybe something else too as well?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Jada. If we were to be very focused on what will be the future path for anyone who wants to work with people in organizations, it's going to be being fluent with data, being able to tell stories with data. In fact, we do teach a course called Storytelling with Data, because what we find, it's not just telling the numbers, but really understanding deeper what those numbers actually tell us, and being able to translate that story for business or organizational execution. However, at the same time, the technologists are beginning to reach out to humanists in the jobs, because the intelligence of tools, the intelligence of technology is getting to be the key differentiator between the technology of today and technology of the past. As I say that in the past, we were trying to shape people and groom people to be like computers. Now we're getting computers who are trained to be like people. So we see this convergence, and I think there's a very, very bright future for those who can fluently connect the data, the technology at the same time, the power skills of being coaches, consultants, storytellers, and being able to actually drive outcomes with humans and machines.
I was going to say that I feel like a lot of people who probably went into the HR space wanted to do so because maybe they're a people person, they're a communicator, and usually those people, myself included, aren't the technology people, right? And now you're telling me that they kind of have to be both. Are you seeing maybe the types of students coming into your programs very different than what they used to be? Are you seeing people more interested now in that tech side? Do you need to be tech savvy to be in HR now?
Jada, I want to say you're in the right place because, you waited long enough for technology to become more and more user friendly. And in fact, technology itself is going to coach you how to use it the right way. Right. So I think what we're going to see is the generation of the professionals who are in HR coming from all different disciplines. We do see some people coming from finance, a lot from project management, and obviously technologists are always intrigued, if not fluent, with the power skills of being human focused. I think if we can invest more into kind of cross training both technologists and HR people with the tools that are becoming more and more user friendly. As I said, you don't need to be a math major to understand those technologies. This is going to reduce barriers of entry, and HR is going to be a lot more sophisticated without making it more convoluted and complex.
Are there any main areas of focus or main key tips now that you are imparting on your students as they maybe graduate and go into jobs? Is there anything that you want them to know that maybe was different from a few years ago, maybe different tips?
A lot.
Break
Absolutely a
it
lot.
down.
I mean, the big challenge for me, Jada, was, I don't, and a challenge and opportunity, and I actually welcome it, is that I don't have to lecture. There's so much information, quote unquote, is that's available to the students to go out there and learn. They can learn to code, they can learn everything else. They don't need to, go to college to do this. However, I think what's different is a huge emphasis on critical thinking, understanding at the highest level of what works, what doesn't, in the actual application phase, understanding the ethics, and how do you drive human-centric solutions rather than purely, a transactional, economic, or any other reason for why you are going to have certain outcomes. It has to be human-centric, and it's a human effort. So the human is still in the loop, and we need to be able to operate at that level. Let me just give you an analogy and a metaphor. If we take the pre-calculator times when we kind of had to memorize, and you probably don't remember it, but I do. Same thing happened, no way even close to AI, but similar analogy when we were debating whether calculators should be allowed in schools and in universities because the humans were going to just lose any ability to add and subtract in their heads. Guess what? That's already the train left the station. It's no longer a discussion. We can't imagine any course without people being able to use a calculator. So I think we're going to see the same. And what I'm really fascinated about and intrigued about is how humans are going to adapt and really raise the bar for all the humans in the profession to operate at that level. If you remember, we always lamented the fact that HR was so transactionally bound, anchored to the desk to figure out the next report, et cetera, et cetera. Imagine that that's being taken care of appropriately, and HR can now pick up that report and go and have a intelligent conversation with business leaders about what needs to be done and the impact, and playing scenarios and all of those complex issues that need to be solved. So we need to train our HR professionals to be able to do that and have also interpersonal confidence, executive presence, to be able to operate at that level.
So, of course, with you kind of teaching the future and being in the academic side of things, you're probably changing your curriculum and how you're teaching the next generation. But I guess let's broaden it up to the people who are already working in HR, already working for these companies. How do they get trained to learn the intersection of both? Do the companies themselves need to do that? Do the HR professionals need to do it on their own? What do you think kind of the solution is for the people
Yeah.
already doing it?
I think it's all of the above, Jada. We have so many resources available to the practitioners out there who are in the field. Even I do a lot of conferences and webinars, and your show and any other. There's just so many. We really have the democratization of knowledge in general. So, however, I don't want to take the responsibility away from the companies that are employing these people. We need to provide resources, guidance. We need to provide tools, as well as encourage and create incentives. I think the most important thing is even not so much let's send everyone to a training class, but more let's create incentives and reward systems for people to actually drive that learning themselves, as well as offer people resources. Because it's one thing to say, go and learn because otherwise you're going to lose your job. That's the threat that the company sometimes puts out there, right? If you're not going to learn this, if you don't have those skills, you're going to lose your job. We're going to replace you with AI. On the other hand, I think the more kind of humane and more sustainable way of creating that continuity, organizational, memory, and all of that kind of stuff is if companies have incentives, rewards, point their people in the right direction, and create opportunities for people to grow professionally from within.
I love that. I think that's a great way of kind of figuring out that solution as well. And we're talking about how the HR industry is changing, but now let's flip it to talk about how just the workplace is changing. A lot of people are working for themselves, gig workers, the rise of remote work. How has that been changing either how you're teaching your classes or just how the HR industry is viewing things now?
Yeah, excellent. I think we're still kind of in between about continuing to diversify the ways in which people work and engage, etc. In the office, back in the office, hybrid, etc. Every company. What I'm saying always around this remote work concept is every company needs to decide what's fitting their own business model, and it could be even differentiation between the kinds of employees. There are certain categories of employees that have to be in the office a lot. Like, for example, I think a lot of HR professionals working with either in the coaching field or talent management, employee experience, they should be in the office meeting with people. However, there will be certain categories of people who may be very comfortable and much more productive working from home, remotely. So I think that every company, unlike what we had before, one model, everyone 9 to 5, everyone in the office 5 days a week, I think that is being diversified and there are multiple options. And again, that's where HR professionals should be sitting at the table with the industry leaders or their organizational leaders and advising on what makes most sense. Because at the end of the day, the companies need to be looking at what outcomes they're looking for. what outcomes both from the business, from the organizational purpose perspective, as well as what kind of culture they want to have. So all of this is extremely, right now, at least compared to where we were before, extremely personalized to individual organizations, even individual leaders, what their preferences are. So we'll see all of the above. And what we need to train HR professionals on is to be able, to help organizations make those decisions, advise them on what will work best. And then secondly, be kind of fluent in what it takes, for example, to be an effective remote worker. For example, I am working right now with Tulsa Remote. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with this model, where certain locations in the United States and even globally set up an incentive system to bring in remote workers who are working for different companies, to kind of all congregate in one place, and where they provide them with support at the same time, create economic incentives for them to be relocating to certain geographies that before might not have been very attractive to professionals with skills and demand. So I'm working with Tulsa Remote by Kaiser Family Foundation to create a training course for an effective remote worker. And what we have there is a whole series of modules where we can train managers in being an effective manager of remote workers, as well as a remote worker who could be the only one out there, working for this particular company, but how they could network and connect back to their organization to keep the kind of cultural continuity, et cetera. And so I think that this is just one of the examples where new HR skill set is going to be required, of being that coach, consultant, as well as developer of higher level skills for their organizations, where a lot of it couldn't be just taken off the shelf. It could be developed internally, and HR professionals should be prepared to step up to that challenge.
Yeah, because I feel like remote work obviously mostly came out of the pandemic and everybody was just thrown into it out of necessity. And a lot of companies did realize that remote work is more beneficial because people like working from home. Maybe they're more successful that way. I know with one of my jobs, when I went into the office, I was distracted by talking to everybody. So I got more work done at home in the privacy by myself. So I guess that is something to think about that maybe many people are not thinking about, is that also changes the way to hire people, create community culture. You don't want people to just feel like they're out on an island either. And you're saying that's also HR's responsibility, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Both by advising the leadership of the company, because there could be some leader whose mental model of working is 5 days a week in the office. They feel more secure when they see everyone. So it's a coaching assignment, right? You go in, you explain the facts. The facts might not work, but you have to coach the leader to better understand why this particular model will be better for their organization, better for their workers, better for the overall kind of attraction of talent. And but at the same time, we need to be also allowing for opportunities for people who do want to be in the office. And there's quite a few, I think. And what's really fascinating, Jada, that as we are learning, we're kind of going through the learning curve on this, is that at different stages in their career, people want different arrangements. If you are brand new, it pays off to be in the office because you want to see the people, you want to get mentored, you want to learn by osmosis of how people move around, etc. It's actually, I personally don't advise, people who are very early in their career to be working exclusively remotely. However, when people get more mature, establish themselves, etc., they develop a social network in the organization. They work on teams. They know people. Management knows them, etc., and they start families, etc. That's the time when that social capital is in place, where they can remove themselves and be, coming in once a week, or maybe just for offsites or whatever. So I think this is where the nuance of developing these types of arrangements and recommendations comes into play.
I do agree with that. It's very interesting. Everybody's going to want something different, and especially for their positions. So I love that take. And then I always like to give some advice into some wisdom for those who may be watching who are the job seeker. So to kind of wrap up our conversation today, we spoke a lot about the HR side of things. For anyone who's applying to jobs right now, we know the market is a little bit confusing and a little bit fickle right now. So, do you have any wisdom to give job seekers from your expertise?
Number one, as you're looking for jobs, that's a great learning opportunity. You really do make an analysis, assessments, comparisons between different cultures, different organizations, different expectations, different leadership styles. And I think there's more need to do this type of research. There are better tools available to do this research, but I would say absolutely think about a lot of times what I see in people looking for jobs or looking for me to counsel them, they spend a whole ton of time working on themselves. They do reflection, they find their purpose, they develop different types of resumes, and they spend 80% of their time on kind of perfecting who they are, and then 20% of like going out there and see what jobs are available. And I want to really change this equation. You need to see what's needed, because you're not just going to come in and people are going to listen to your purpose in life.
Mhm.
Absolutely important. However, if you want to get a job, you are solving somebody's problem. So spend 50% of the time on yourself. Absolutely critical. But your number one priority is also to see 50-50 what's out there. What kinds of problems are people solving today, and how you could be the solution to their issues. Because at the end, again, when you come into that interview, the final round, and you are face to face, and a lot of times it could be Zoom, um, people are going to see will this person, will Jada solve my problems if I bring her in? It's all very good if it's all aligned with her, purpose in life, absolutely mission critical. However, that's not why you're going to be hired. You'll be hired because you're going to help somebody else achieve their purpose.
That's such an important tip to end on because, as we like to talk about on this show, sometimes resumes can be exactly the same, but you need that thing to stand out, and solving the problem, I think, is the best way to do that. So, Dr. Tavis, thank you for your time today and thank you for all your wisdom.
I enjoyed it very much, Jada. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And thank you all for joining in and listening in today. You can catch us every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're hungry for other Purple Acorn shows, head to purpleacornnetwork.com and Purple Acorn on LinkedIn. I will see you next time right from the desk with me, Jada.